Hi, my name is Beth Hiley here for BoardGameGeek at Origins 2019. I'm sitting down with Matt Eklund from both Sierra Madre Games and Iron Game Design.
Right.
And you guys have brought us the next in the Pax series. So for those of you who have looked at the other Pax games from Sierra Madre, you might be saying this is Pax Transhumanity. Like, that doesn't seem as historical as perhaps people might think of when they recall PAX.
Yes, the PAX line of games has traditionally been a very historical in nature, picking very specific times and places and times.
And with very high historical accuracy. That's definitely been the hallmark of those games.
We try very hard for that. Now for this game, which carries it into the future, we have to do a lot of guesswork, but the general theme is that this assumes that humanity is going to be okay, and that we're not going to end in some zombie or nuclear apocalypse, and that we'll instead...
Or alien overlords.
Yeah, that's... fill in the blank on which way that humanity might end in any number of dystopian fictions. This game assumes that that is not going to happen, and that in fact we will continue to invent and develop new technologies and improve humanity's circumstances rather than make it worse.
Well, let's take a quick overview of like what a turn would like, and then also what are we trying to accomplish to win?
Sure. So the players start as financial backers or investors who are looking to the future. And they're going to be investing their money and their capital, which takes the form of cubes in the game, into different ideas that they're going to try to sell to the world or develop or otherwise make money off of or solve world problems with. Now, the game takes place in the scope of 4 different spheres. Now, players who are familiar with the PAX lineup, the idea of a marketplace of ideas remains the same. In this game, there's 4 different columns instead of 2, and each of the rows, they used to be rows, they're now columns of cards, represents its own part of Earth's future. So over here, we've got the first world, we've got the developing world, we have the cloud, and we have outer space. Each of these places may have interesting ideas or technologies that could be developed within them. Each of them have their own challenges that need to be solved in order to reach that goal. The players are going to be interacting with these ideas by using their cubes, their investment cubes.
I'm going to slide my cubes off here for a moment.
And they're going to be on this finance board. And the way the finance board works is, I'm not sure which way up or down is on this.
That is readable to everybody else.
Okay, so...
and we're actually looking at this one right over here.
Looking at this one.
And actually not a bad idea to put different colored cubes so it's really obvious to people watching.
So you can actually see.
Yeah.
So you're going to take these cubes, and maybe they'll be organized like this. And it's important to remember in this game that the cubes themselves don't represent money. They really represent flows of money. And you can spend actions to generate money with these cubes. So you can, for example, do what's called a fundraiser action. This will mean any capital will offset any debt. So in this case, 2 and 2, and then all wealth becomes capital. Now, that's how you generate the money. That's how you generate the economic potential. But when you're spending money, it's the movement of cubes that gives you money. So if I had to do something that cost $5, I would move 5 cubes down like so to wealth, and that is me spending $5 to do an action. So money itself's not preserved in the game. We don't have tiles or tokens that represent vast stockpiles of money.
Yeah.
Money, these represent flows of money. And those cubes aren't just going to stay on your finance board. They're going to be placed out into the world, out into the marketplace to try to develop these ideas. And the way that you do it is you will pick one of these ideas that you think is going to become viable, that's going to become sellable. So there's a lot of ideas in the game. In fact, the game is almost entirely ideas, but not all of them are going to be usable by the players. And over the course of the game, more and more cards will become more and more usable. And there's a thing over here which is slightly off screen, so I'll bring it down here maybe to show a splay of cards. This is the Human Progress splay. And every time that a player is able to successfully commercialize a card, that card is going to get tucked under here to create a new pairing of cards. So for example, the fact that there is an orange and a green card adjacent to each other in the display means that this card over here and row 5, which you can see there, is a green and orange idea. This idea is now viable. This is an idea that
we've made enough progress.
We've made progress in other ideas, and we made this pairing.
To kind of make that connection between those two ideas. Oh, that's fascinating.
Exactly. And so over the course of the game, as multiple players are contributing to the human progress, more and more ideas are going to be viable. In fact, at the beginning of the game, 0 ideas are viable, and you have to use another game mechanism called patents, which are listed here, but it involves cubes, to actually
force a combination.
A combination. As the game goes on, you're going to rely on that less and less, and you're going to use your patents instead for money, because you don't want to spend the time to do the fundraiser action.
So just to make sure I have this right, so green and blue are also adjacent, so like our effective robots would also be viable then as well.
That would be viable, and it became viable the moment this blue card was commercialized, whenever that happened in the game. Now, however, there are going to be cards like exoskeletons here. Is a orange-yellow card. We did not have an orange-yellow combination in the human progress play, so exoskeletons, as cool as they are not viable. And the game is full of ideas.
It's our flying cars, as we are today.
That's true. And there's ideas that have already been put to bed, and maybe flying cars is one of them. All the ideas in this game, which include scientific advancements, but also social reorganizations or advancements.
Yeah, like universal base income. I like that not all of these are technology based.
Right. So one of the aspects, each of the different colors represents a different discipline. So for example, orange is basically nanotechnology and assembly, but green is group dynamics or social reorganization. And so it's equally important in the game as the other sorts of technologies, which include computing and transbiology, which is genetic engineering and things like that.
So what's our end goal? How are we going to win?
So as the human progress play evolves over the course of the game, the current regime is going to change. Now this is very similar to other PAX games. Where the regime changes. So right now we're in blue because if you saw the display before, of the last 3 cards, there was exactly 2 that were blue. But there's 4 different, it can be any of the disciplines. It could be green if 2 of the last 3 are green. Or it could be gray if there is no dominant sphere at the end. And like most PAX games, which are very tactical in nature, you're trying to manipulate the game state so that when a victory card comes up, that this regime matches where you have the most points.
And you can maximize what you've got.
So if you've spent a lot of time developing space, you got a lot of points in space, then you want humanity to sort of avoid the internet and get offline. You want them to get up there into orbit. And so that's the ultimate goal. That's how it's pursued. I mentioned that, of course, display makes cards more viable over the course of the game, but there's also barriers to actually doing business that increase costs. You can see these angry-looking stop signs here in the different spheres. They're going to get covered. They're going to get covered up.
Down so we can really highlight that.
They're going to get covered up by players as they establish companies in these areas, and that's going to make things cheaper for all players in that particular sphere. It's a particular advantage if you have your own company there because it's easier for you to hire into it and do business. But the point is that not only will more and more cards become viable, the cost of doing these things is going to decrease over the game, not increase. And so the game really accelerates, and it's supposed to, in some way, mimic or simulate how real science progress is going to happen and is happening right now.
In a nice, positive, productive way. Yeah.
Non-dystopian is the word that we like to use.
Which is, I don't want to say it's refreshing, but just it's nice for contrast because
there's a lot of zombie games out there.
Yeah, exactly, and it's nice to think that we can be the best version of humanity.
I hope this is how it plays out. That's what I do. I hope.
Well, if you guys want to check out the latest PAX game and go a little bit into the future, this is Pax Transhumanity. And Matt, thank you again for taking us on a quick tour of hopefully the real future.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.